excited to be here. We're here with Laurie Handlers, sex and happiness coach. So first off, I want to know, like, how do you become a sex and happiness coach? Like, what brought you, how do I become a sex and happiness coach? What brought you to being a sex and happiness coach?
Oh, it's good. I have two factors that led into it. The first one is that when I was growing up, I was very precocious. I always wanted to know more about sex than my parents were willing to share about. My mother was no dice.
Okay.
And, to this day, my sister and I think we were the Immaculate Conception. We can't imagine that our parents had sex. Well, we know Marty, my father did, but we don't know about Betty.
Okay, right.
Anyway, so I wanted to know more. I could never get the answers. I was the girl in high school that went to the boys who had a new term, and I would say, what does that mean? And then I would go in the locker room, and I would say to all the girls, this is what this means. This is what 69 is. Mm-hmm. This is what blowjob is. And the girls would get all their information from me because I wasn't afraid to ask the boys. Not that the boys were doing that. Mm-hmm. They were wishing for it. But I was very curious. And when I started having sex, I was 18, and I knew inside myself intuitively there was something much more to life than this. Frictional in and out. I said to my partners at the time, when I was maybe 20, I think there's more to this. Can we go lock ourselves up like in a hotel for a week and like figure out some more things? And they were like, this girl's too wild. We're scared of her.
Yeah, where were you when I was 20?
Right. So they would never say yes to me. And so I just was unsatisfied for a very long time. Like my mind and my heart and my gut knew more than my sex was experiencing. So that's like the first how I became who I am. I was super curious, and I knew there was more, but no one was talking about it. There was no one talking about anything. The second.
And what era was this? Just like for my own frame of like
I
the world at the time.
Like I grew up in the 60s.
All right.
You know, I went to college in 1965.
Right.
So it was like a turmoil, tumultuous,
right.
crazy
Yeah,
time, the Vietnam War.
Okay.
I was in Washington, D.C. in college when I had my sex for the first time. And, every day was a demonstration on the White House and on the Capitol. And it was free love then. There was no AIDS. So I had birth control pills, and that's all I needed.
Right.
Like I didn't worry about pregnancy, and there was really not... It's a whole story when I heard about herpes for the first time.
Other STDs floating
There were
around.
not a lot. There was the traditional
today.
ones. Yeah, the traditional ones of gonorrhea and syphilis. But I wasn't worried about my partners having that.
Right.
Right.
And so it was really a free love time of if you want to have sex, as long as you have birth control, you can have sex with anyone.
Wow.
So yeah, me and my friends were like, hey, see food, eat food. And then, but I still was very unfulfilled. It didn't matter how many partners I had or how often I saw someone and said, oh, that's for me. It was still very unfulfilling. And there wasn't any telling them, this wasn't that good.
Right.
Because I didn't really know. They were supposed to know. Boys were supposed to know everything.
So started getting into Tantra, is that what?
Well, so I got into I got into Tantra in the 90s.
Oh,
so,
wow, that long. Oh, okay.
I heard about Tantra in the 80s, but there was no internet, so I didn't know how to find it.
Oh, okay.
And then in 1996, 10 years after I read my first article about Tantra, I was working at Landmark Education, and I left because my body was breaking down. Yeah, you've heard that story before. Mm-hmm. And then a friend of mine said to me, wow, there's this Tantra class coming to Silver Spring, Maryland, which is right outside of D.C. And I said, I'm taking that.
Wow.
So I took the class, and I said, this is my life. This is like day one, I knew this is going to transform things in my body. Landmark was only transforming things in my mind, which I can't knock it. But
right.
So in 1996, I went on my Tantra path.
Oh, so I thought you would have. I thought like it happened earlier, sooner. Like
I wish,
60s.
Kevin.
Oh.
If I had had it when I was in my 20s,
right.
my life would have been. I would have known that this was a temple. I would have known that this is sacred. But
right.
I didn't know that. All I knew was I'm free. I'm
Right.
sexually free. I can do anything I want, and I will. That's what I knew.
Right.
So I didn't get what I was feeling until I read this article in the 80s, and I still was frustrated because I didn't know how to find the person, Margot Anand. Turns out I found another teacher in the 90s. And so, yeah, I was late in my 40s when I found this. And so I made it my hobby. Like every weekend I took a class, or sometimes I would go away and take a class. And I was doing government contracting then. I was working for the Clinton administration, welfare to work. I was taking people off the welfare rolls. And on weekends I was teaching mini tantra classes. And then George W. Bush got elected. And he took all those contracts and he gave them to churches. Mm-hmm. Now, I didn't own a church. Some people think Tantra's a religion. I'm not into religion, so I wasn't making my Tantra classes a church. But I said, I don't have any more income. My contracts went to churches. So I went, I know, sex always sells.
Right.
I'm going to take my hobby and make it my vocation. And that was in 1998. So that's me from 1998 on. So how you become a sex and happiness coach, you study sacred sexuality. You find a great teacher who will teach you everything they know. My teacher was this way. She knew everything. She probably knew all the sutras, all the Vedic scriptures. She knew tons of stuff. She poured it into us, and I didn't think she lived it. So I had to leave her. I can't leave. I can't stay. I have to leave when I feel like people are inauthentic, like they're not living what they say.
Right.
So I
Absolutely.
had to leave her, and I left her, and I went on my own. I had a partner in my life then, an intimate partner in my life then, and he and I started teaching up and down the East Coast, and then we started teaching in London, and the rest is history.
I mean, you teach all over the world, which I want to get to a little bit later.
Everywhere.
Which I really want to talk about because there's a lot of things I'm just interested in your experiences with that. But I want to tie this in right away too because Kevin and I both know you from the longevity world.
Yes.
And our show being based on longevity. How is it that you tie sex and sexuality and sex and happiness? Like, where's the connection?
It's easy. Just bridge the gap. Here it is. The gap is we have not been told, the same way as the religious and the conventional world has kept us separated from the mind and body. So we don't know that the source of our power and the creativity is in our belly and in our sacral chakra. So chakras are the energy centers of the body. So we haven't been taught that our creative energy is more than for making babies. But it is more than, because we have a cerebral cortex.
Right.
So while all the animals in the animal kingdom can have sex, they can literally fornicate.
And they enjoy it too.
They enjoy it. It lasts about 2 seconds or 5 seconds. But for us, we have this, which is a great sex organ.
Right.
And this has creativity. So this is the seat of our creativity. We create from this. This is our power of creation. So how I bridge the gap in longevity is, okay, let's say I want to live much longer, which I do. I want to live forever. So how can I use my sexual energy to plant that seed of creativity everywhere throughout my body?
Right.
How can I make my cells and atoms believe that I'm capable of doing this? I use my sexual energy. So every time I'm having an orgasm, I say to myself, I'm a forever body. I'm staying here. I plan to stay here. I resolve any health issues that come up. I stay vital, moving, beautiful, healthy, juicy. I say that to myself. And I say that whether I'm myself, self-pleasuring, or whether I'm with my partner.
Right. And that's a lot, my understanding, that's a big facet of Tantra, right? Like this kind of manifestation of creativity connected to sexuality. Do I have that right? I mean, because I've not Tantra.
Not
I know
everybody,
you for so long, but I mean,
Yeah.
or do I have that wrong?
Well, not all Tantra teachers teach sex magic. because they're afraid that people will cast spells and move it into the occult.
Right.
And
Which is not a bad thing.
no, but they're afraid of black magic spells. So
Right, black
what
magic spells, of
what I tell people when I teach sex magic, which I do, to big groups, like at almost every festival that I've been to, and Tantra festival around the world, I teach sex magic.
Sex magic meaning?
Meaning fuel your intentions and create your desires to manifest with your sexual energy. I'll give you an example in a minute of how this works. But I tell people, don't make a spell on someone else. Like if I wanted you to fall in love with me, I wouldn't do sex magic on you. Like I would just come to you and say, I'm crushing on you. You know,
But can you do that? Can you make me fall in love with you?
Possibly. I'm not going to try it. I think you already love me.
Sure, I already do. But I'm just saying, I'm sure you could do that if you
I
wanted
think
to.
I could, but I tell people not to do that. I say not to use it
No, I actually believe that people
on other
can do
people.
that, with their emotion and their intention
Yeah.
and what they.
But I
they
don't
go
try.
for.
See, I think
Well,
creation.
that's a great thing. Yeah.
I think creation also happens in a conversation. So if
Absolutely.
I was interested in you, either one of you, I would come to you and say, I'd like to have a conversation with you for possibility of us. I would just, most people are not straightforward, but I would be, and I teach people to be straightforward.
That's great.
Right.
Like, I'm interested in you. I'd like to spend time with you. I'd like to get to know you better. I'm interested in you sexually, blah, blah, blah. I would say that.
Yeah.
And, but I'm in a place in my life where I'm not afraid to say that.
Well, it's integrity and communication, and I think in sexuality, for all kinds of cultural and whatever reasons, like communication is a very challenging thing. I mean, knowing you as such a good communicator, I imagine so much of what you teach and work with people on is just communication.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't there actually documented fact though? Like, because what Steve was saying even about longevity, isn't there actually now a lot of scientific studies being done?
Well, first of all, Napoleon Hill covered this in chapter 11 of Think and Grow Rich. So Napoleon Hill knew about this, and Napoleon Hill asserts that all the top founding families of the United States, like the top capitalists, the DuPonts, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, name them. We can list them off. Those guys all knew about this. They all knew about channeling. We call it cultivating sexual energy.
Okay.
And they told him that if he wrote their names in the book, that he would, he would get sued, or he would never be able to his life would be threatened. So he didn't write their names in the book. But I think that these people knew about that.
Wow.
Is it
Interesting.
scientifically documented? So far, I only
Not
know.
that aspect. I mean the longevity aspect.
I know of one scientific study that was in PubMed. They studied 129 couples. Of the 129 couples, they only studied the women. They measured the women's telomeres, and then they found that the women's telomeres, the women who had more regular sex, not regular sex conversations, not that their husbands understood them more or listened more, just sex.
The act.
The act of sex, the women who had regular sex, let's say 5 times a week at least, minimum, their telomeres were longer than the women who didn't experience that frequency of sex.
And for people who don't know, the telomere is on the end of the DNA.
Yeah, the strand
That's
on
what-
the end of the
That's
DNA
what shortens
strand.
with age.
So it's
Right.
an aging marker. As you age, your telomeres, and you get stressed, your telomeres can shorten.
Yeah.
And there's a point if your telomeres shorten enough, you will
Die.
all kinds of disease states will start
Yeah.
happening. So it's one of the issues that needs to be resolved as we resolve these aging.
So that was
Yeah, so that study on sex, and I got that from Bill Andrews.
Yeah.
From
He
Dr.
sent you that?
Dr. Bill Andrews
Okay.
sent me that article
Okay.
to tell me about it, and anything that he comes across that he finds more of, he sends to me because
Now is this just
everyone's
now-
interested in sex.
Now was this having actual sex with a partner, or was this also pleasuring themselves?
I think partner sex.
Partner sex,
I don't
okay.
know. I
So-
think scientists are kind of goosey about distinguishing between self-sex and other
Yes.
sex.
I think it's self-sex too.
I hope so.
Well, I mean,
Well, even on a biological basis, I mean, sex is part of biologically
Yeah,
who we
right.
are.
Right.
So there are chemicals. I mean, just talk about simple biochemistry.
Oh,
I
we
mean,
have-
what are all the benefits to sex just now? But it's probably important if you're going to be 50, 60. Because a lot of people have the mindset of, well,
When
once
I'm
I get to a
50,
certain age, like
over.
there's some time, like there's a switch that turns off in your body, right? I mean, you must meet.
Yeah, it
People-
does. Hormones get lowered at about 50 for both men and women. And when the hormones start lowering, the tissues inside women get more fragile. Men lose their drive. They go, uh-oh, it's not working anymore. What should I do?
Yes.
I don't have the same drive. And women get, oh, I'm kind of done with that.
Yeah.
Whatever. And so...
and I think even culturally, like, that's the norm. That's to be...
Yeah.
But don't you think it's part of the culture that causes that?
Yeah, it's both ends.
Yeah.
I think the culture...
It's traditions of putting people in their place and where they're supposed to
Yes,
be. And they're not,
yes.
They can't make babies anymore, so they're not supposed to be having sex.
Right.
It's about procreation.
Right.
Okay.
And to me, I'm having the best sex in my life, and I'm 70 plus.
Right.
So it's like...
Hell yeah.
And it seems
it's
like...
the best.
Yes, it's just going to make...
Yeah.
If you're going to live to be 70 plus, which we all want and plan to go way beyond that,
Well, I'm in
it's
my
part of the
50s now.
happiness and joy of your life as well, too. But I just think there must... I mean, what are all... Like, what chemicals get released when you have sex? Like
endorphins.
Oxytocin.
Oxytocin is the most important one, but endorphins, oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine.
Right.
And there's other ones. There's sub
feel
ones
good.
to that. There are all other peptides and things, but oxytocin is the thing that makes people feel so good and feel bonded and feel loved and feel attractive.
Right. Oxytocin is the... I mean, I think about it most when I think about when mothers give birth. They have a huge rush of oxytocin. I know with sex, too.
Yeah.
That it's this connection, right? It's kind of we kind of learned it as like the connection hormone.
That's right.
In the body.
And it's so necessary. And when people deny themselves that, it's like they wither. They dry up and wither, and it's not necessary. It
I have
isn't
a theory
necessary.
that what causes people to lose that hormonal edge is that they stop.
Yeah.
Like if you don't use it, you lose it.
That's right.
I have that in me because I know a lot of people who are very active in their 60s, 70s, 80s still having sex,
Right.
And they haven't lost that necessarily. And maybe they're probably living a really healthy lifestyle too as well. I'm sure that has something to do with it. I'm in my 50s and I'm like more than ever. So, I mean, I think it has to do with this and also what you're putting into your body.
Yes. And women
believe
post-menopause, they don't have... It's what you're putting into your body. It's what you're putting in your mind.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
post-menopause, women don't have to worry about pregnancy anymore. So they're freer. They're freer in their bodies if they allow themselves to be.
It, right.
Right.
I mean, in my world, in the Tantra world, I know a lot of women who are just going in menopause now.
Did you ever have a period in your life where you didn't have sex?
Yeah. It's interesting. When I was with a partner and teaching Tantra, everyone thought we were the hottest couple in the world.
Okay.
But he wasn't terribly interested in having sex. I don't know what his deal was. I have a lot of theories about it, but we just went a long time not having sex. And I would say, like, we need to have sex. Like, we have this image.
Yeah.
And he was...
Yeah, you
Look
just
at our
said it.
Instagram, everybody.
People aren't doing what they're talking about, right?
Right. So
Well, it's
I
funny,
had to
just the
leave
conversation
town.
of interest versus...
Yeah.
Wow.
I couldn't stand it. It was horrible. So then I had a big period of, again, seafood, eat food. And then, so it was weird because I was a Tantra teacher and I wasn't having sex with my partner, but I was having a lot of self-sex. That was around the time that a friend of mine introduced me to a wand that looks like an S. You've both seen it. And
I have one.
Yeah, and the wand.
I got it from you.
That's right. And the wand, I started using that to stimulate my G-spot, and then I used it with my vibrator, and inserted my wand, and I squatted down, and then I taught myself to female ejaculate. So then it was like a puddle on the floor, and I went, oh, I can do it. And then I realized every woman could do it.
Yeah,
She just doesn't distinguish. If she doesn't have the distinction, the physical distinction, just like this distinction of balance.
Right.
If a woman doesn't have the distinction of let go, push out, and liquid will come out, but it's not pee.
It's not pee, and they think it's pee a lot of times. Yeah.
Then they won't.
Right.
They won't do it, or they'll prevent themselves from doing it because they don't want to pee. But it isn't.
Okay.
It isn't. So I taught myself with that very wand. I've used that wand on many of my partners, and stimulated their male G spot, and I feel like there's so much that we're prevented from knowing about because no one talks about it.
Right.
It's taboo.
It's taboo.
And do you think that society and religion has a huge part to play?
Yeah, society and religion is guilty.
Guilt. It's always guilt. That's
Well,
what I think, too.
if we're guilty and ashamed of our body, then we can be controlled to be sheeple. If we're not guilty and
Absolutely.
ashamed of our body, then we can be free and nothing can control us.
Now, don't you think, like, through history, they've always, because I feel like women are more in touch with this than men. I feel like they get in touch with it sooner than men do. I don't know why that is, but I think that they feel that. Like, even throughout history, women have been, put to death for being
sexual.
They were witches, or they were this because they, as midwives and everything, because they were experiencing all these, and they were constantly suppressed, which seems like religion did that.
Yeah, because they couldn't be controlled, and so they had to get rid of them. But they knew intuitively how to harness this energy, and also because women take everything internally. Internally, they have the knowledge. It's
Right.
like the ancient knowledge. It's the wisdom. And if men want to rule, if the church was male-run by patriarchy, then it served them to
express
get
that
rid of
energy.
smart
Yeah.
women,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
really
smart women,
creative,
exactly.
smart women.
Yeah.
So that's
Where
what
do
happened.
you think, like, where do you see things going with that? I mean, there's the history in the past, and there's where do you see?
hashtag
I mean,
me too?
Yes, there's all
There's
these things. I
hashtag
mean,
me
even
too.
with
Right,
I mean, there's a lot of interesting conversations that are
Yeah.
going on in the world now, and I think, and more so, I mean, one of the things I think is exciting about longevity and super longevity is it's an opportunity as for even to go deeper with these things, because we're not in this same cycle of, okay, now it's a new generation and now they have to figure out things, and they go through these same
Right.
cycles. And where do you see things going in the future with sexuality and the world? Like, what's your, being an expert and people who teach people? I know a lot of what you do is just help people even just get through all these different things that have repressed them. I mean, that's one step, right?
Right.
And then you then have the step of then just being self-aware of yourself,
Right.
let alone be self-aware of a partner you're with.
Well, people have assignment to self-pleasure. I mean, I make people touch themselves.
I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, and I make them touch themselves all over, not just go quickly
Have
to
the
the
whole body
genitals, but the
experience.
whole body, their hair,
Right.
everything. I have them tap
Well,
and
there's
do the
erogenous zones all over the whole
right.
body, right?
And then I have them tap. So that tapping technique, which is emotional freedom
Yeah,
technique,
EFT.
I have them. They could be touching their genitals and tapping, because I want the trauma to come out of their body. So I teach men to have ejaculation choice, so they don't have to ejaculate every single time they're having sex. I teach men that 21 days it takes. I teach women how to heal themselves through self-pleasure. I teach people in groups to not be afraid of seeing their bodies, no matter what their bodies look like, and celebrate them, celebrate the differences, that there is no right one. This isn't just me, though, so I have to say I'm part of an international school.
Right.
And the international school that I'm part of, we teach people, we go against all the taboo.
Right.
We teach people the unteachable, the unthinkable, the undoable. And we're in 40 countries, and it's happening in droves.
Yes.
In droves. I mean, I just came back from Fiji. I just made arrangements this morning for Honduras. I'll be in. I'm just talking about really exquisite places. Sure, I did it in North Carolina. I'm going to be doing it in Georgia. I've taught it in Massachusetts and New Jersey, Arizona.
Yes.
But the places, the destinations in the world, Costa Rica, Fiji, Honduras, Ireland, Scotland.
Yeah, it's so cool. Obviously,
England.
and we will have links to all those things too.
I'm going
so
to
people can
Berlin next
contact you,
week.
yeah.
So, I mean,
Berlin,
it's
huh? You
yeah,
have to go to the clubs
it's
out there.
Do you
Yeah.
see this like this? I mean, it seems like, I mean, in your career, have you seen just a progression of more and more people are hungry for this
Yeah.
and moving in this way?
yeah, yeah. At the same time, some of my colleagues were endangered recently in China. China's
Okay.
getting rid of all religion that has popped up, and they consider Tantra to be religious in nature, and so colleagues of mine had to cancel. There's a lot of Chinese women very interested in sacred sexuality.
Of course.
The men are working. The women are so mad because they're not getting properly sexed. And so the women want to go to courses and figure all this stuff out. And some of my friends had to cancel their China tour.
Wow.
There's also a new crackdown in Indonesia.
Like the Chinese want to let them, or they just didn't feel, they felt threatened to?
They felt threatened. I warned them. I didn't think they should go. And also in Indonesia. So many of my friends teach in Bali and in some other places in Thailand. And there's been a little bit of backlash. I've taught in India, and in India it's,
So it's all kind of basically, though, around still control of women and not letting women have the
Right,
power.
exactly.
Right? Whether it's religious or
Right.
it's secular, no matter what it is.
Right.
The dictatorships that don't want women to have power, it's
right.
it's crazy.
It's true. And yet in Fiji, we had 3 Fijian women in the class, and it was amazing. One woman had never left her village ever.
Wow.
And she came to class, and she has 6 children and an ill husband, and she left them for a week to come to class and be with us. And she was in my world, she was a miracle. It was a miracle to have her. She was so rich with her own knowledge, and yet she got so much from being with us. So it's we're growing and expanding majorly. I think 10,000 people have been trained in the ISTA training, which is the school that I'm part of. It's a mystery school, and 10,000 people is a lot of people.
Do you think like more than not the world is moving in a positive direction?
Yeah, I
in
do.
terms of this?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sex positivity, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think Facebook, as much as
Fantastic.
Facebook is trying to censor sexuality, which it is,
Yeah.
I just was interviewed by the Associated Press in an article about Facebook censorship and other social media censorship. And as much as they're trying to
so
censor everything,
interesting.
it's added to
they
the
can't
growth.
control
They
it.
can't
Yeah.
control that we get the word
Right.
out there.
Exactly.
The
Well, it's
drums are
such a-
beating.
It's
They
such
try,
a
but,
new way.
so much.
Yeah, and it's such a new way of communication.
Yeah.
I mean, we're figuring it out, right? I think
Right.
what we've seen in the last few years with Facebook and social media is, there's a lot of problems that are coming out of it, but I think more than not, it's such a broadened scope of communication.
Well, she asked me what I wanted to say to Mark Zuckerberg, and I said, grow up. Just grow up. You do it.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
You used your creative energy to create Facebook.
Right.
Let us create.
But isn't part of the fear, with the sexual thing, here's one thing too. Sexuality can be turned against people and used against people and harmful. And
Predators.
it's something that's also used, can be weaponized very easily.
Yes.
Correct? So, I don't know, but I'm just saying they also have to navigate all of that. And I don't think they have any clue how to do that right now.
Right.
Like this world of social media, of small voices that wouldn't, maybe small dangerous voices that wouldn't be threatening at all, can become very threatening all of a sudden.
Right. Yeah. You
in
just have
social
to
media.
point a finger. They just
Right.
have to say so and so did this, and boom.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's scary, and that's in our world too.
Yeah.
Hashtag Me Too and hashtag Meg Tao. So Me Too is women and men who have been violated by predators
Right.
and have spoken out. And some people have been rightly spoken out about, and some people have not.
Yeah.
Right.
And then there's Meg Tao, which is men going their own way. Men who are now straight men who don't want to have anything to do with women. They don't want to be endangered. They feel like women are dangerous.
I heard that.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
They feel like
Yeah.
women are dangerous and they don't want to have anything more to do with them. They're going to go their own way. They're growing beards and moving to mountains.
Yeah,
Lori,
yeah,
what are
yeah.
we going to do about
It's the
this?
whole hermit thing.
I'm trying.
But,
Yeah, some people are regressing definitely in this world. We know all about that.
Rip Van
Yeah,
Winkle
some-
syndrome.
Yeah, some people are regressing,
Yeah.
some people are progressing.
Yeah.
So it's,
What do you think about all the the gender stuff that's going on now? What's your play on male, female sexuality? There's a real biology about that. Now you have this whole movement with gender thing that seems like it's gotten a little murky and sometimes problematic. What do you think about what's going on?
Okay, well.
I haven't even never asked you about this. But
Yeah, so my opinion about it is it's good. Like I have a positive pro sexuality feeling about it. I feel like people need to be who they are. And that said, there are people who have sensitivities to things and have distinctions to things that most of the rest of the culture don't have. So, for example, I was at a gathering recently where people were talking about pronouns. So when you stood up and you announced yourself, you had to say what your preferred pronouns were. Okay, fine. So mine are her and she. And someone that I love very dearly was there, and she is a transgender woman moving from male to female. And she said her pronouns she preferred were she and they.
They, yeah.
And then we had a day of they. So we all had a day of they, and some other people were like, I'm not going to be they. Mm-hmm. Who do they think they are making me they? So
Right.
So there's a backlash that as everything new that happens, there are people who don't get it that it's a politic we're actually talking about. It's more than just my personal feelings that I want to be they, if I do want to be they. It's a politic that my culture labels me a boy or girl when I come out the womb. In my culture, it circumcises the boy without asking permission. It's just like a routine thing. That's like 6,000 nerve endings. The most sensitive part of a boy gets cut automatically and labels this person boy or girl when in fact that person may grow to not want to be that, and definitely not want to have been circumcised for the most part. So it's political. And then just like vaccines. Oh, I don't want to get into all that.
Yes.
But anyway,
we don't have time for that. We don't have time for that.
But there is a politic to it, and an existing regime, if you will, an existing overall social system that we're socialized into that says this must be. And when those people grow and say, I'm gender bending, I don't want to be a girl. I don't want to be a boy. I actually don't want to be anything. I want to be it and they. First of all, their parents freak out. Second of all, the school freaks out. And third of all, what do they go to the ladies' room or the men's room? See, what society's worried about is which restroom do they go to? On the airplane, no one cares. So why should anybody care anyway?
Because there's more than one person in there at a time. That's what.
I guess.
I think that's the thing. They don't want people to either be taken advantage of or offended or one or the other thing, which can be ridiculous at its
I think there's a whole spectrum.
Yeah, it can be ridiculous.
But people they're at risk because the overall culture doesn't see them as valuable. So they're at risk to be attacked.
And it can be weaponized both ways.
To be violated, to be whatever. So it's, for me, it's not a beginning conversation. I've been in the conversation for a while now, and I certainly have friends who are leaders in this conversation. Right. Same thing as polyamory. I have friends who are leaders. One of my best friends is the poster child for polyamory. And questioning all of these values is...
Well, because it goes against tradition.
Yeah,
it really scares people because people live their life by tradition.
Right.
They live their life by, they feel comforted in it.
Yeah.
They feel comforted, and then when they feel like... What people get afraid of is if someone's trying to put that on them. I think that's what it really comes down to more than anything with a lot of people. There are the majority who are just jerks and they want to just control everyone.
Right.
But I think a lot of people also don't want to feel like, oh, don't take away from me what I feel. You know what I mean? And they need to understand, okay, well, we're not going to take that away from you, but don't take away what somebody's trying to evolve to as well.
Exactly.
Create, you know what? And evolution is evolution. And the humans have always had a problem with evolving. I don't know what it is.
Well, with any change.
Stuck. And I think evolution, if people would just accept evolution for what it is, and it's just a thing that's going to happen. And you can't stop it from happening.
You can't stop it.
Be okay with those people being like that, I mean, they're not telling it. Where we come to a problem is when people try to enforce something on somebody else.
Right.
That's what I think is the main
problem. Some people had an issue with they for the day, which is like, really? Get over yourself. So what? We're they today. So what? Today we're vegetarian for the day. So what?
Well, I think one of the interesting things with sex, I think, because there's a couple things. There's sex and there's sexuality.
Right.
And sex is a part of sexuality, but sexuality isn't always about sex, and I think sometimes people hear that word sexuality. There's biologically, there's sex, there's male, female. Like this is I think sometimes too, what some people get offended in that conversation or just don't get in the conversation is they feel like you're now dismissing male, female as something real, because male, female is real. Like to deny that is like scientifically offensive, to people too. So, I mean, if you're born biologically a male, you're biologically a male, like that's fact.
Right.
However, our sexuality is a lot of part of just the software we run in our brain.
Right.
And humans are incredibly, I mean, one of the beautiful, amazing things about our species is we're actually we can run different softwares and different programs. That's why all these human species, which we're all the same, I mean, we're pretty much all exactly the same, can live in these different cultures that have vastly different ways of being sexuality.
Right.
So I think for myself, like sometimes my frustration hearing these conversations is people aren't understanding just the communication of what you're actually talking about when you're talking about male, female, and then how they identify them. Because how they identify yourself isn't necessarily maybe how you are biologically. And even if you go through the process of transitioning and sexually changing, if you're a male going to a female, you were still born with the male genes.
That's right.
In your body, so it just seems like this conversation gets murky with like people not even talking about like what the facts are, not understanding, and just it becomes political right away. And then it's just like the tribes divide and nobody's even having a real conversation anymore.
Exactly.
Well, and I think it's a right for people to change, to be able to change what they want to be.
Just like you can change your hair color.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
and
like I can wear,
I
can wear contact lenses and change my eye color.
Exactly.
I can change my religion if I chose.
You can change your sexual part.
People are augmenting themselves constantly now, especially women.
Yeah.
They augment themselves constantly with their
lips, their breasts,
their ass, their everything. You know what I mean? They're getting liposuction. Everything is like they're not how they look at all when they came out of the womb, and they're definitely not how they looked in their teens. But a lot of them are even doing it now in their teens.
Yeah. Right.
So like that's the whole thing of transforming yourself, and I think it's becoming a part of evolution. We are here to mutate and transform ourselves.
Well,
that's what we're even doing at the cell level.
It's my thing too. I still think I want to change the show's name to Self-Guided Evolution because we are
totally.
We are in this era of like we're actually now we're becoming more and more. We already are like in charge of our own evolution. So sexuality was black and white. Definitely was pretty much more black and white 100,000 years ago for our ancestors. We've just evolved to this place now where our software, like we have choices. Once, you talked about the sexual revolution with birth control, like that changed everything because now females who are biologically very vulnerable sexually, because if I have sex with you and you get pregnant, like I can leave. You're stuck.
I'm stuck.
You're stuck. So that's, that was a vulnerable position for for a female just to be in, and a different position for me as a male to be in.
That's right.
But and as the future evolves, we're going to be more and more in control of these things. We now can live in a world where, evolutionary wise, we don't have to have just one partner because we needed that for survival.
That's right.
And that was the only way to do it. And the children were hopeless without having a mother-female unit in place.
Procreation has been
so that's why I'm interested, but even like where the future is going, of how do you see that landscape? Do you think some people will just choose one path, other people will just become more and more options?
I'll tell you what's happening. So first of all, there's a book called Sex at Dawn, which explores, was there really one partner or was it really a village? And so Sex at Dawn, it's been debunked a little bit that it's skewed the science, but it's real. I think it's really good. I'm listening to it. I'm not done with it yet. I can't read it. It puts me to sleep. Yeah. But I'm listening to it. So that talks about lots of different cultures and how they mated and who stayed together and what. What I see in my world is lots of people are moving towards what's called open relating or polyamory. They may have one person that they super love, but they are open to loving others. that's where my world is leading. I'm not advocating for that. I think monogamy is a very difficult and wonderful path. And I see multiple partners as, for some people, multiple dramas. Like it's hard
is
to
the first
Drama
thing-
enough with one.
I'm
then
not
you add
kidding you.
two
Like
or
that's
three
the
or
first thing
four
that goes in my head. Like,
and then it's just like snowball.
It's hard enough to
Yes.
connect with one, having another and another and another. I know people have pods of 12
But
people.
don't you think that that's all because of the traditions and all because of the guilt? Like if the tradition and guilt was removed, don't you
Right.
think people would feel more open to actually be able to love more than one person?
I think it's possible. I do.
Because I think people can love more than one person.
In principle, I do, and certainly I've tried it, and I find it difficult to juggle just because of my schedule being the way it is. You know, I have one person that I really love, and it took a long time to find that one person.
Yeah.
It took lots of years to find a person
Yeah,
I could
understand
really
that.
trust and love, and while we're both open. It's like, who has time to go
Yeah.
exploring for anybody else?
yeah.
And
Well,
even
sometimes you just find that person, you're not even exploring.
Yeah.
It just hits you. You know what I mean?
even in my life where there's lots of opportunity, it's kind of like, people pale compared to somebody I'm super invested in.
Yeah.
So it's
when you have a connection with somebody, it's
I think
that makes the sex better. It makes everything
better. So it's interesting for me to be swimming in funny waters and new waters.
Because don't you think casual sex too can be
Fun.
hard? Well, it can be fun, but it can also be hard on the body too, can it? If you're not really connected to that person at a certain level.
Yeah, I think it can. I don't know. I've never had sex without connection.
See, that's the thing.
I probably
Yeah.
have. You know, I'm sure there were times in my life where I
when
said
you
to
were
somebody,
younger or
"Could you get
whatever."
out
Yeah, right,
before
yeah.
dawn?
Can you leave now?
Can you please? I don't want to like spend the whole
Well,
night.
it can be abused. People can use it just like
Exactly.
they abuse a
Sex can
drug
be-
or
Exactly. It
alcohol.
can
like-
be.
Sex can be a weapon.
It can be a weapon and it can be an addiction. And
It's-
so
yeah.
I've passed through that phase, and I feel like I couldn't have it without connection. Like I would need connection. But love, do I need like what we would call love, like all those chemicals going off even before? I don't know. I don't know that I need that.
So I want to ask you one more thing
yeah.
before we're finished about
Yeah.
about tantra,
Yeah.
because you teach it obviously,
Mm-hmm.
and so and before you spoke about the male ejaculation.
Yes.
So I wanted to get on that because I
Yeah.
did tantra courses way back in the 80s
Right.
and 90s, and I did that where I still do it to this day.
So
where
you
I
have
can,
choice.
I can have orgasm and not ejaculate.
Good.
But a lot of times I like to ejaculate.
Yeah.
But don't you now? Do you think that it's wrong for men to ejaculate?
No, I don't think it's wrong.
Okay, awesome. Now, do you
And there have
think-
been
but-
studies. There
but
have
don't-
been studies on that. Men who ejaculate more frequently
Have less prostate
have less
problems.
prostate cancer.
Exactly.
So tantrics have to take a look at that.
That's what I was gonna. I'm glad you're saying that because that's what I wanted to ask
Yes,
you.
they have to take a look at that.
Don't you think that, as far as the religious aspect of it, why people are so freaked out sometimes by tantra, I think, is because they think that spilling the seed also is killing children.
Oh, I don't know anyone like that.
No, that's the religious.
Oh, yeah,
organizations I'm
religious.
saying.
That's why you're not supposed to
Yeah, they look
masturbate.
at that. You're not supposed to.
You're gonna
masturbate.
grow
You're not
hair
supposed to
on your
pleasure yourself.
palms.
The only thing sex is for procreation.
Yeah.
That's
But that's your- that-
that's
that's-
the ultimate.
but in all
fundamental,
fairness,
still
Kevin,
millions
like-
of
That's to
people-
make
but
babies
still
for the church.
Millions and
Yeah.
millions of people believe on this planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Millions and millions still believe that sex is wrong. So what you're doing, what you're doing is, I'm saying, is fantastic because you're opening up to people to the reality that sex isn't just about procreation.
Right, it's not.
It's about life. It is about longevity. I feel that. I feel like when
It's
people
life
stop
force.
Yeah, when people stop having sex, they're killing their life force.
That's right. Hands down, I agree.
And but I do think that it's great to be able to have orgasm without ejaculation for men because men are controlled by the getting off sometimes, I think, more than the experiencing the full body
Right.
experience.
So we
of
teach them
orgasm.
non-goal oriented sex.
Right.
Connection. So the old adage is women need to connect in order to have sex. Men need to have sex in order to connect.
Right.
Like it's
Right.
the
It's
wiring.
reversed.
The wiring got screwed up there. So when
Say
men,
that again, just so people can hear.
women need to connect before they could have sex, and men need to have sex in order to connect.
Right.
And therein is the cosmic joke.
Totally.
One of them.
Yeah.
Right.
So the idea is, can a man connect, and men are learning in Tantra to connect and to not have goal-oriented sex. Like, I have to get off. No,
Right,
you don't have to get off.
exactly.
You can learn some other sensations in your body that will make you feel even better if you prolong the sensation and not have to get off. So that's basic Tantra. That's Tantra like 101.
Yeah, exactly.
For men.
For men.
And for women, it's how can I experience myself as a multi-orgasmic being and know that I'm connected to all there is. I'm connected to, it's like this. You said male and female before, but I'm going to change to masculine, feminine.
Okay.
We all have masculine, feminine in us. Everyone who's gender bending, everyone who's not gender bending, we all have masculine, feminine in us. So the question is, what is the masculine, feminine? So what I learned was the masculine is the cauldron, and the feminine is the fire and the water. In the water in the cauldron and the fire that's burning is the feminine. What my partner says, which I like better, is the masculine is the shores, the banks of the ocean or the banks of the river. The feminine is the ocean. And as crazy as she can swing out, and moody as she can get, as creative as her process is, the masculine can always catch it because it's the shores. Mm-hmm. And so there's always a shore that catches the water. And so we teach women that they're safe and they can their masculine can catch themselves.
Sure.
And that they have a sword in their spine and they can use it anytime and it's there. And then we teach men to not have a goal and to hold space and to make everything sacred and to set things up. And then women get to show up and be, breathe. No one in here is a predator. No one in here is going to trespass me. No one in here is going to violate me in any way. I can be fully the goddess, and the men can be fully the god. And so we worship ourselves.
Right.
No religion, just me.
Yeah, right.
And I do have one more question too that I want to
Go.
ask you about virtual reality.
Yes.
And what's that going to do to what's it doing to the scene now? Like what?
Well, there's robotic. There's robotic sex and
have
virtual.
you seen what's going on?
You know,
so what do you think?
I haven't. I'm too busy. But people.
I'm worried people are going to stop having sex.
Some will. Some will. Some will just. Every fantasy that they could ever imagine can be put in virtual reality. They can program it and they can do it. Well, wait. I have to backtrack to something we said before, which was, when it's not permitted in the greater culture, then it goes in shadow.
And that's when it becomes, a lot of times,
that's when it becomes predatorial. Devious, perverted, attacking on children.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's the shadow. And
Catholic Church, perfect example of that.
Yeah, so we don't want that. I mean, my organization that I work with and everything, we bring everything into the light. We actually challenge whether teachers, there's always been this adage that therapists and teachers can't have sex with their students. Well, we have challenged that. In my organization, we say that we can after a period of days, only we don't approach anyone. And we've taken a lot of flack for that. Because we say we're people who are teaching you, and we're not going to be in the shadow about it. We're not going to either go, I want you, and we're also not going to go.
Right. The flirtatious action thing.
Oh, you noticed me? We're not going to do that either. We call both of those out. So we've taken heat for that because we don't have a set policy that teachers are over here and everyone else is over here.
Okay.
So that's a thing. I wanted to, it went in and out before. The thing about virtual and about robot sex, I haven't experienced it yet. I haven't, certainly I've been transhuman in sexuality. I have gizmos and gadgets.
Yeah,
and
of course.
I'm somebody that they send the stuff to try it out and give a review about it.
Wow.
So I have
YouTube reviews.
I
I'm
do.
sure
do that.
I have those things, but I haven't experienced virtual reality yet, and I still think that I think it could be really hot. And I think it could be great partner sex. One could be watching some crazy fantasy and being stimulated by their partner or others.
Yeah, right.
I don't know yet. The jury's out.
Yeah.
I have to experience
I
it
was just
myself.
like wondering.
Yeah.
You're cutting edge everything, especially in that world.
Could you imagine, that robot that we know, what's her name?
Sophia.
Sophia? I mean, can you imagine having sex with
No, she
Sophia?
doesn't turn
No.
me on.
She doesn't turn us
it's
on.
not there. It's not Westworld
but
yet.
But if they
they're
make
there.
him like those real dolls, have you seen those real dolls?
Yeah, they're not there yet either.
Now, I
But if they
interviewed
can
a
make
guy.
if they can make the
I
I'm sure
interviewed a
more people
man
will be interested.
on my podcast who has a company called Play Bay, and he has life-size, gorgeous, sexy, like you can't believe dolls.
Yeah.
And I really got it. I got, like, when I interviewed him, I got that there are people who are lonely who could get a doll. There are people whose partner travels a lot, like I travel, could get a doll.
Yeah.
There are people who, whatever. He gave me a lot of rationale for these
Absolutely,
dolls.
absolutely.
And I saw them and they were spectacular. So I thought, yeah, I could get this.
Yeah, it's funny how the mind kind of goes in a deviant place right away. But yeah, there's, I'm sure like there's healing aspects. There's,
for sure.
for a lot of people, these virtual worlds will be able, I would imagine too, you could do guided things and move people through things and
Absolutely.
experiences and past traumas and everything.
Absolutely.
So
Look, my goal on the planet really is, I never knew this was my goal, but it's my stand, is to eliminate shame, guilt, and fear.
Absolutely.
And so that's what I help people eliminate in their body and replace it with pleasure. What's the
Yeah.
opposite of pleasure? More pleasure. That's really, that's
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
that's it. Like if we weren't supposed to have pleasure, we wouldn't have been born in skin. We would have been born in metal, glass, or wood. And we wouldn't feel anything, but we are supposed to feel.
I love it. And one of the goals, I know one of my goals for super longevity is always to be living that happy, pleasure, joyful life.
Absolutely.
I mean, like that's like who wants to do any of this if you're not fulfilled in those ways?
Well, the things, the chemicals we mentioned before, serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, and the other one. Serotonin counter cortisol, and cortisol is the stress thing that kills us.
Yeah.
That's what shortens our telomeres. So we need that stuff, and that's the science reason why people shouldn't stop having sex.
Exactly.
Those things have to counter their stress levels.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
So there it is. Long life, have sex.
Love it.
Right on.
Well, let's end there for this first end.
Awesome, Laurie.
Laurie, thank you so
you
much.
Get you
so
back on
much.
here again
Awesome.
for sure. There's
Yeah.
a lot
Thank
more
you.
to,
I
Yeah.
know.
a lot more
Yeah.
to talk about that we
I
didn't even
know.
get to.
All right.
Fun. Blast. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thanks.